Welcome. This is the fifth day of our Nouveau Frontiers Festival. It is our first ever New Works, New Voices Festival at Nouveau 47. A large part of our mission at Nouveau 47 is developing and producing new voices and new playwrights. We are so proud to introduce you to some of those at this festival. And we are featuring 8 playwrights from all over the country, New York, LA, Austin, and right here in Big P. There's going to be a different event every day, stage readings, storytelling, a scriptworks, playwriting workshop, late night sketch comedy, and more. So check your program for the lineup. If you're interested in the playwriting workshop, next Saturday, it's called The Best Play I Never Wrote, and that's $10 at the door. And tonight, I'm very proud to show you our 6th storytelling production. It is an event, if you're not familiar with, where writers, performers, non-performers, professionals, emerging artists, and regular Joes come together to tell their story from the stage. And now I'd love to introduce you to the originator and co-producer, Nicole Stewart, who's going to tell you a little bit more about it.
Hi guys, thank you so much for coming out tonight on such a gorgeous evening to be here for the most A Night of Story Legendary Tales. Amazing evening ahead. I want to tell you a little bit about our process of how these stories get here. We solicit submissions from the general public, and then we actually work with the writers editing the pieces. So the initial piece that we get goes through a transformative process, and we bring forth the truthiest, juiciest parts of their story that resonate most with our theme. So we're so grateful that you're here, and enjoy the show.
Everybody wants to be a cat, because the cat's the only cat who knows where it's at. Everybody picking up on the feline beat, because everything else is obsolete.
Hi, my name is Jean, and I'm an animal saver. Seriously, I save animals like it's my job. Something about their precious, fuzzy little faces just makes me have to take action. Which is why I was so overcome one morning while reading the news. Bat's fate after shuttle launch appears grim. Being an animal lover, I had to know more. During a routine examination, a bat was spotted clinging to the side of a space shuttle that was about to launch. A memo said that, as it wouldn't impede liftoff, no attempt would be made to remove the bat. The shuttle took off with the bat still attached. The injustice of it all. NASA officials knew this little guy was there, and no attempt was made to save him. I cried for days. If I had been there, I would have done everything in my power to save him. About 2 weeks after the bat incident, I walked out of our warehouse at the store where I work and looked across the field behind our building. It was spring, the grass was turning green, there were butterflies in the air, and there was a bright spot of orange in a tree that had yet to produce leaves. Orange that was meowing. Cat! I love cats! They make me so happy! I seriously become friends with people or think more highly of them just because I find out they like cats too. Ridiculous, I know. So I ran across the field and proceeded to climb the tree while wearing business casual. Perfect tree climbing attire. The cat kept waving his tail, purring, butting his head up against the branches. In cat, that means, I'm super excited to see you. And I was excited to see it too. Until I noticed its stomach was really extended and bloaty. At first I thought, oh my God, this is a pregnant cat. I have to get her to a shelter. Then it turned around and there were balls in my face. Okay, Mr. Cat, why are you looking knocked up? I needed to figure this out. I grabbed him and climbed down with him in my arms. And I felt his stomach. It was disgusting, like Jell-O in a Ziploc bag. I set him on the ground and saw that his stomach was hanging down on his right side, but not his left. And his legs were all wrong too. One was set up higher than the other, and he was walking with this staggering, drunken gait, not at all the graceful walk of a cat. Oh my God. It looked like he had been hit by a car. But what really got me was that instead of just lying down or yowling out in pain, He kept stumbling after me, rubbing up against my legs and purring. He just wanted me to pet him. So I sat down to pet him and tried to figure out what the hell I could do with this broken cat. I couldn't stand it. I thought of him clinging to that tree like that little bat and couldn't turn my back on him like mission control. Two little clingers. One little buddy was gone. I couldn't have helped him. But this little meow right here, I could help. I grabbed a box, put him in, and brought him inside. I was amazed at how calm he was despite his pain. He just blinked benignly and purred, looking so grateful to be found. I got him a bowl of water and started calling shelters, pounds, animal hospitals, anything. And I kept hearing the same thing. With the condition he's in, we'd have to euthanize immediately. I was heartbroken. How could they say this about my sweet new friend? Like NASA, no organization would help, so I moved to Plan B. I called my husband Scott, and he said he would be right there with supplies. But I knew we were in a pickle now. We didn't have the resources. We already had 2 dogs and 1 cat in our tiny 1-bedroom. Scott was a barista, and I worked at a furniture company. So some months were a struggle just to pay our bills. I went through the contacts list on my phone. I'd love to help, I heard over and over. But I already have too many cats, dogs, kids, not enough space, allergies, cats are the devil. Insert excuse here. Why did you call so-and-so? I just started crying. Hope was fading. I was failing this little guy who kept hobbling after me. Scott showed up and held me as I cried. The whole time, Meow sat next to me like he was saying, "Thank you for helping me," which made me feel even more guilty and horrible. Then, the fabled light at the end of the tunnel. My phone rang. It was my friend with 7 pets. Hallelujah! Gina, I talked it over with the fam, but we don't have room for another kitty. But we do want to help. Get him to a doctor. If you guys can keep him, we'll make a down payment for his treatments. Yes. Everything was on fast forward from there. Meow went to the vet. He had 3 hernias and a dislocated hip. Injuries consistent with being hit by a car. He spent 2 weeks there. We started a Facebook group to raise the remaining money, and with help from friends, his bill was paid off. Today, Meow is whole and healthy. He's this sweet, friendly little guy who still just wants to be pet. He rounds out our little ragtag bunch of fur babies perfectly. Lola, our pretty little puppy princess who hates walking on grass. Neville, the intellectual and slightly neurotic poodle who loves wearing t-shirts. Milo, our brooding and emo cat who just wants to be left alone. And now, Oscar Wildcat, our stoic fighter who put on a brave face against all odds. The cat that brought together an entire community and just wants to be loved. I look at Oscar and know that having him has changed me for the better. In our crazy busy world, so many things pop up and challenge us. If these things don't impede our own personal liftoffs, we let those metaphorical little bats go up with the shuttle. People don't always take the time to put forth a little extra effort, get out of their comfort zone, and simply help. Rescuing Oscar made me realize I am not that kind of person at all. I want to help those little clingers, and even though it's not convenient, I will be the one to step up and help. And I got a new baby out of all of this. Not too shabby, if I do say so myself.
In my parents' house, animals live a lot longer than they should. You would think this would be pretty rad. Okay, it is pretty rad. But there are times this house keeps them a little too long. A while ago, when my family was visiting my unkempt uncle for the weekend, my little sister, compassionate, literally to a fault, fell in love with a week-old kitten that had recently popped out of one of the half-dozen pregnant roaming cats. She took pity on this poor little kitten with the kink in its tail, and she wanted to take it home. For those of you who don't already know, you really can't take any newborn animal, throw it into a box, throw that box into the back of a car, and drive 200 miles and expect what's inside not to be completely insane when you reach your destination. By the time we got home and unboxed the kitten, its store of marbles was completely spent. She bolted behind the TV, and we all responded in such a way as I will now demonstrate in slow motion. No, kitty, wanna pet you? She proceeded to spend her days behind the TV and her nights gorging herself on her food, our other cat's food, and any hair ties she found lying around. Donuts. After an entire year of successfully avoiding us, she found herself too fat to get back behind the TV. And we saw what my sister's cat had grown up to be, a giant fuzzball. So that became her name, Fuzzball. We were really not that creative. So that's Fuzzball's origin story, if you will. Everything between then and the rest of the story is an unpleasant jumble of our elderly cat, Diana, nursing an adult Fuzzball, and us repeatedly discovering the hard way that she never actually learned to clean herself. Try not to think about it too hard. It is as gross as it sounds. Fast forward to near the end of Fuzzball's life. She was getting worse and worse about the whole cleaning herself with her own tongue thing. I don't blame her, really. I mean, I wouldn't want to clean myself. Now, you would think the task of picking up the slack would fall solely to my sister. Her cat, her problem, right? Well, I wish. But I wouldn't be a decent Greek brother if I didn't help out. It's a curse. We were in our late 20s by the time my parents decided something needed to be done. My mom called, we answered. We were mostly obedient children even into adulthood. Upon our arrival, my mom had already had everything set out on the kitchen table waiting for us. A giant stack of towels, a pair of scissors, and an electric dog trimmer. We slunk down the hallway on our way to the tiny bathroom that was to be our cage for the next several hours. It called to us like the gates of hell call to sinners. A little too dramatic. I'll work on it. We covered the bathroom in towels. I plugged the trimmer in, and my sister pinned the cat to the floor. While she was doing this, we took a closer look at what was in store for us. Fuzzball was a long-haired cat, if you couldn't guess that from the name. And all that long hair was now filthy with the oil from her skin. You see, cats clean themselves so much because the oils in their skin will collect in their fur and make it matte. At least that's what happened to a normal cat. This cat had managed to go so long without cleaning itself that it had gone well beyond matted fur and was approaching dreadlocks. And I'm not talking about the, damn, that guy looks cool, dreadlocks. No. I'm talking about the rotting on the inside. We were quickly discovering that this was going to be a lot less fun than we had originally thought. A lot less. Liz held the cat to the floor. I fired up the trimmer, and we got started. After a couple more failed experiments with the clippers, we gave up. We were going to have to use scissors and do this one snip at a time. This was not what we signed up for. We were not happy. After a couple minutes devoted entirely to self-pity, we started snipping away. We took turns as one of us held Fuzzball down and the other cut as much as they could before their fingers needed a break from the strain. Did I mention that Fuzzball was crying the entire time? Yeah, she was. It was awesome. A little after the 2-hour mark, we were both completely stressed out, tired and sweating from the heat in the bathroom. But when Liz cut a little too close to the skin of Fuzzball's poor belly and snipped her, Liz freaked out, throws the scissors, and starts bawling. She had come face to face with the antithesis of her very animal-loving nature. At the same time, the Fuzzball doubled the intensity of her cries. I took a look. She had barely nicked the cat. Before I continued, I took stock of the room. I had a cat crying at the top of its lungs, tiny lungs. A sister who very well might have just broken herself. My fingers were killing me, and it was over 90 degrees in the room. I cursed creatively under my breath. I rolled my eyes as hard as I could, and I continued to work. About 20 minutes later, Fuzzball was finally ready for the shower, and Liz had calmed down enough to continue. We were already pretty nasty, so we really didn't care about getting wet. We got the shampoo and turned the water on. To give you a sense of how much the cat needed it, the water coming out of the faucet was clear. The water coming off of the cat was a very unpleasant shade of yellow. Ochre, if you will. We gave her a couple rounds of shampoo, rinsed her off, and then discovered we still had one more zone to tackle. The dingleberry zone. And I'm not talking one or two, I'm talking about a dozen of the biggest, most intimidating dingleberries you have ever seen. Every one of them aged to perfection. I'll spare you the gory details, but trust me when I say it's not something you want to experience. After we were over the final hurdle, she was clean-ish. We released Fuzzball back into the world with her newly terrible haircut. As my sister and I stormed out the door, we proclaimed we would never do this again. She was filthy less than a week later. Since the haircut, Fuzzball had taken to sleeping in her litter box. Needless to say, this didn't help with the whole keeping herself clean. So my parents were forced to take her to the groomer about once a month. We would never shave Fuzzball ourselves again, especially considering we weren't getting paid. 3 years later, I was visiting my parents one evening when I heard this light tapping, like a tiny cane tapping on a wooden floor. I followed the sound and it led me to Fuzzball herself. I gave the now elderly Fuzzball a pleasant greeting. She was old, insane, and a complete mess, but we still loved her. And then I noticed what was making the sound. It seemed Fuzzy had been sleeping in her litter box so long, one of her feet had crusted over with litter. So I bent down to clean it up, and I discovered that wasn't litter. Yeah, it was her foot. It was hairless, dead, rotting. The powers of the house were still working against this poor thing, keeping her here even after her foot had gone. I told my dad. He said he would take her to the vet in the morning, but during the night, the house let her go. Fuzzball was off to a better place. My parents have a dog now, Samantha, who was shot in the chest. And is now 7 years older than she was estimated to live, and going strong. I sure hope this house keeps doing whatever it's doing, so that my parents can have Sam around to come whenever they call, because I sure as hell am not shaving another cat.
Only boy, won't you be my only boy? Yeah.
The wind of heaven is that which blows between a horse's ears. The wind was blowing hard that spring morning. It was as if nature was trying to shout a warning to me. Change is coming. Change is coming. As I head to class, I thought, it sure is windy. Then my phone rang. Hello? Okay, fat boy. Hey, Dad. That's how my dad greeted me every time we talked on the phone. There's a wind blowing down there? Yeah, it is. I was just thinking that. You know what they say about the wind and horses? Yeah, I've heard it once or twice. Well, it's true, you know. Yeah. So what's up? She had her baby. The excitement of the moment stopped me in my tracks. I stood there, motionless, just grinning from ear to ear. Okay, I'll be there tonight. I skipped class, went back home, and began to pack. I shoved a pair of boxer shorts and a toothbrush in a plastic Walmart bag. That's how I packed when I was 24, in grad school and in a hurry. The 4-hour drive to my parents felt like I was driving through a space-time continuum. When I finally arrived, I ran inside, yelled hello, threw my Walmart sack in my old bedroom, and headed out to the barn. As I walked through the door, I realized how calm it was. The wind had stopped. And then, like an angel of mercy, out of the darkness, she appeared. My horse. My dad had bought two mares 2 years prior, and when it was confirmed that one of them was pregnant, had promised the foal to me. Okay, fat boy. My father had followed me out to the barn. It's a filly. She's a buckskin. It's beautiful. She had jet black stockings on her legs, black mane and tail, fawn-colored coat. I had dreamt of this moment since I was 5, becoming a cowboy, training my own horse. I spent many birthdays having cowboy parties, going horseback riding. But growing up, I would just sit out in the pasture and just watch the horses. Just wanted to be near them. I spent as much time as I could with my horse, teaching her to wear a halter, walk on a lead line, and allow humans to rub her belly and pick her feet up. I would drive from Houston to my parents' house every weekend, and during the week if I could. A few months into this routine, as I was working with her, she had had enough. She began to buck and snort. Whoa, she's as hot as cinnamon, my brother said. Yeah, I guess you're right, I thought. And just like that, she was named Canela. That's Spanish for cinnamon. Now, when Canela was a year old, it was time to join up. Now, this is when your horse becomes your companion. The wind was calm that day, as if to tell me to slow down and enjoy this. I got to my parents' house and went out to get Canela. I put the lead line on her, led her to the round pen, a 40-foot diameter circle that's enclosed. The only way in or out of that circle was through me. I led her to the center of the round pen, took off the lead line, and she turned slowly and headed right for the gate to get out. Hope this works, I thought. Ha! I shouted and sent her to the edge of the round pen. I had to allow her to try to get out on her own before she would realize that I was the way out. Then, after several excruciating minutes, it happened. She began to lick and chew. She put her nose right to the ground. That was the sign. I turned my back to her, put my head down, and I waited. She stopped running and looked at me. I waited. I thought, come on, girl. Come on. You can do it. Slowly, tentatively, she began to walk over to me until her nose was right on my shoulder. Good girl, I whispered. I rubbed her neck and I walked away. Please work, I thought. Then sure enough, she followed me. First one direction, then the other. I stopped, she stopped. Yes, I thought. She trusted me. We continued to work for the next few months, and shortly after Canela's second birthday, I was able to begin riding her. And that is when I learned the truth of Winston Churchill's quote. There's something about the back of a horse that's good for the inside of a man. I'd gone outside to load the car for my trip to see Canela, and when I came in, my wife was standing in the doorway. I want out. Okay, sure, here, let me get the door for you.
Yeah.
No. I want out. The realization that this was the end of my marriage began to sink in. I stopped and looked at her for a moment. Tried to convince myself I didn't know what she was talking about. Struggled to find something to say. Why? She turned around and walked away. When I got to my parents' house, I went straight out to the barn and got the saddle. I didn't want to face my parents. Unfortunately, my dad saw my car and came out to the barn. Your mother and I just talked to Jenny. Yeah, she told us. Yeah. Just let me go ride. I just need to talk to Camilla, I thought. I didn't know what to say to my father. As we rode, the heavy wind began to blow across our ears. I started to cry. I need you right now, I said to her. I don't know what to do. I just need you to help me, girl. She snorted, kept walking. The ride continued, and I poured out my pain to her. I blubbered almost the whole time. And she didn't seem to mind. She just seemed to understand that I was hurting, and I needed her. During the divorce process, I rode almost daily, talking through my problems with Camilla, using her back to heal my inside. She got me through it. And later, after I married my current wife, she was even gracious enough to accept her. And when my wife and I had our children, as soon as they were old enough to sit up, I would take them for a ride. And as Camilla and I would head out with baby in tow, my wife would call out, "Camilla, you take care of my baby." Both of them. She did. She always did. A year ago, on a windy April morning, as I was loading the car for my family's trip to see Camilla and my parents, I got a phone call. "Okay, fat boy. Hey, Dad. Are you sitting down? Why? We sold Camilla. They're coming to pick her up tomorrow." What? Your mom and I just can't take care of so many horses now. We had to reduce the herd, and they wouldn't take the other horses without Camilla. Can you be here to help load her up? What? Yeah. I'll get there as soon as I can. It was hard not to cry in front of my daughters. When I got close to my parents, the tears began to well up in my eyes. I had to take a minute, take a couple of deep breaths. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw the trailer there to get Camilla. My wife took the girls in the house, and I walked out to say goodbye. She saw me. She came walking over to me. "Hey, Nella," I said, trying to maintain my composure. "You be good. You take care of these new kids and this family like you have me in mind." I led her to the trailer, hugged her neck, rubbed her velvet nose, and said, "In my heart, mi corazón." As I watched her, the April wind began to blow. My father came over and put his hand on my shoulder. And we stood there in the wind, and I thought of an old horse saying, "A man might consider his life as having been a good one, if in the course of it, he's had one good horse and one good dog." I'm halfway there.
PhD, which stood for puppy-headed or pumpkin-headed dog, and she was my four-legged soulmate, and I called her Christy. Now, an animal companion was not part of my life's plan. Not that I had much of one, a plan, I mean. Moving back from Austin with a degree in acting, well, you can guess how many jobs I got with that. I ran the gamut in restaurants and retail stores, and gathering some casual and a few great friends with me, I stayed fairly happy and content. But there was no special person in my life, no one to love or love me back. You see, I was always on the go, always gone, always on to the next thing, the great avoidance. I was now living in a tiny shotgun duplex in Lower Greenville, but it was just a place to hold my stuff. It really wasn't a home. One day, my friend Suzanne decided to get a puppy and asked me to come along for the ride. Now, there were only two left. There was a black one with gold and white markings who just sat there passively, and a golden boy with a black muzzle who was more vibrant and got chosen. Back at Suzanne's and already in my car to leave, I looked up to see her standing there, dog in tow. I think you really need to have him. What? And just like that, I became the astonished owner of one Winston Churchill, named for his English boxer looks. Home from work one evening, I had Winston and work stuff and was juggling him, trying to open the door, and I put him on the stoop, went in, put my stuff down, and pressed the answering machine button. While listening to the messages, I walked back to get Winston, and he was gone. I called for him, walking around the duplex. He'd never wandered off before. Later on, my mind's eye remembered the tail end of a red car driving away. But all I knew was he had completely disappeared, and I never saw Winston again. It was his heart-crushing, twisted face that brought me to Christy. You see, she was the other dog, Winston's sister, the one who just sat there while he danced all around. Susan had heard he was available, as she was now too big for the family that had her. Oh, no, no, no. I had so much guilt losing Winston and what I might have done differently that the very thought of having another animal was frightening. Through much persistence, I finally agreed to just see what she looked like now. Smart people, they brought all her belongings, a collar and a leash, and a piece of hard plastic for a toy. That's all she had, a piece of plastic. Well, I knew any animal deserved more love than that, and okay, Christina became mine. We were instant best friends. No matter that she ate the middle out of the sofa because she was bored, she was my girl and a loyal companion. She understood anything I told her, maybe because I talked to her all the time. I taught her to come to a special whistle. And she did, well, most of the time. My job had now grown in pay, which put me in a position to have my own home. And a backyard with a fence held top priority when doing the house hunting shuffle. I purchased a cute bungalow nearby with plenty of room to romp. Oh, Christy got me out walking all over the neighborhood and on the Trinity Bayous. We splashed in the Gulf Ocean, got slightly lost in an East Texas forest, and went camping with friends. And unless it was too hot for car rides, we went on weekly visits to see Mommy Daddy, a.k.a. my parents. We were a pretty inseparable pair. Maybe that's why I took her with me that day. My old theater buddy, Cindy, now lived outside Fort Worth, and we hadn't seen each other in quite a while, so we were primed for a gap fest. And after a while, Cindy suggested we go out to eat. Well, a little voice whispered in my ear that maybe I should really just go home, but I had a yard with a fence, and we weren't near finished yakking, so hey, what the heck. We'd only be gone a short while. I set out some water, told Christy I'd be right back, and we left. We weren't gone for more than an hour and a half, and we were talking about who knows what when we pulled up the driveway. The instant the car headlights hit the fence, I knew something was very, very wrong. One of the fence slats was broken, chewed through, and then pushed outward. And it didn't look big enough for Christy to get through, so I ran through the house and out the back to see if she was hurt, and she was gone. You know, it's strange I didn't instantly think about Winston then. But just like him, Christy had completely vanished, and I was struggling to stay calm and focused. She wouldn't come to anyone else, so I went out alone, calling her, trying to make our special whistle come out through my trembling lips. I wasn't going to go to that place my stomach and heart were set on taking me. This was not going to happen. She was just around the next corner or the next house. I turned toward a small highway at the top, cars whizzing by, vroom, vroom, vroom. I envisioned Christy dodging them back and forth amongst the headlights. I actually prayed that if she got hit, I would find her dead and not suffering. I simply couldn't go any further, so I slowly turned and walked back down. Oh, why couldn't she see or hear me? Could she really be gone, and what the hell was I gonna do? I sat on my car hood sobbing, still calling until Cindy came out and asked me what I wanted to do. What in the hell did she want me to do? I couldn't possibly go home without Christy. She was in a strange town, a strange place, and even though she was one smart dog, she wasn't Lacy. She wasn't heading home. She was looking for me. And if I left, I would never see her again. Cindy put me up on the couch, but I wasn't going to sleep. Instead, I took my pillow and lay down on the floor in front of the sliding glass door, looking out into the yard where I'd last seen her, steeling my mind that just maybe she might find her way back. The minute the light hit the sky, I was up and out. "Christy, come here, girl, I've got a biscuit." Cindy joined me and we walked in opposite directions. I was now searching through some tall vegetation I hadn't seen earlier. My chest ached and I was utterly exhausted, but I started praying out loud. "Come on, Christy girl, come here. Please let me find you. Please, please, please." I heard someone's voice in the distance yelling, "Mary!" What? "Mary! Mary! I found her!" What? What was she saying? Oh, these stupid cars were so loud. "Mary! I found Christy!" Adrenaline alone propelled me back down through the brush and the weeds as I saw this wild black beast come loping towards me. And I swear it was like those slow motion running films. And we couldn't seem to get to each other fast enough. And then boom, she literally tackled me and we rolled and hugged and hugged and rolled. And then we just lay there, my almost 50 pounds dog on top of me because I was not about to let her go. I don't remember putting Christy in my car or saying any goodbyes. I do remember a tidal wave of weary relief and gratitude that someone, for whatever reason, took her into their home or garage, and maybe hearing our calls in the morning, for whatever reason, chose to let her go. Knowing she must have been starved, I pulled into the nearest drive-thru. That poor girl at the window looked scared, watching a ravenous dog scarfing burgers and an obviously crazy woman who kept laughing and crying simultaneously. But I couldn't help it. Christy had opened me to my true self, and I had just almost lost the best part of me. Finally, on the road, I talked non-stop to her, constantly looking back in the rearview mirror as she grinned her big drooly grin. "Where were you, baby?" But you know, I don't think she ever did tell me. My two parallel dog stories helped me understand that I had to lose Winston and then let him go in order to have Christy, and for the second time, bring her home.
When I look at you, you smile back, you smile back, you smile back. How I love you.
I don't like animals, okay? I'm allergic to most of them. I mean, I don't mind them, I have nothing against them, but the bond that I see between my friends and their pets is something I don't really grasp. However, I'd be lying if I said I always felt this way. We had one family pet when I was a child. I don't remember when we got him, but his name was Alex, and he was a little gray schnauzer with what looked like a white goatee. As a puppy, he already looked like a little old man, a Benjamin Button of dogs. There's a picture of me holding him with my Big Bird lunchbox on what I think was the first day of school, possibly kindergarten. A boy and his dog. A quintessential little picture. Alex was awesome. He was energetic and smart and made faces and had a very distinct personality. And that poor animal had to deal with me and my learning about life and pain and power and what it does and doesn't mean to be a boy. I tortured poor little Alex. I don't remember really harming him physically, but I remember becoming aware that I had the power to do so. I threw slices of bologna against our fridge so that they'd stick, which made him sprint for the treat only to slide headfirst on the linoleum into the refrigerator floor. I'd hold a sock up for him to bite, pulling it out of reach as he jumped, before letting him get it, laughing as he coughed and choked as a result of the sock drying his mouth out. I remember getting his leash and rattling it so he'd come running into the room thinking he was going for a walk, only to find me sitting there, laughing with no leash in sight. I remember making like I was going to swat him and watching him cower at the threat of being hit. been hugging him close and comforting him, playing out some warped little mind game or play or TV scene in my young head. I didn't ever hit him. While Alex was technically the family dog, his care rested mostly on my big sister's shoulders. She's 7 years older than me, and I'm sure that we must have begged my mom for a pet. And I can also assume that my mom conceded only on the condition that she herself never had to take care of him. My mom wasn't and still isn't a pet person. Things went fine for a few years, and Alex was with us through a move from Texas to Alabama. I was in the 2nd grade, and my sister started high school. Gradually, Alex wasn't being walked often enough, and he started pooping on the carpet, much to my mother's disgust. "I knew this would happen," she'd say, rubbing the carpet with a sponge. "If you kids won't take care of Alex, I'll find someone who will." My sister didn't bathe him enough, and he started to stink. I remember him scratching like crazy at the fleas that tormented him. One day, my sister and I came home to find that my mom had made good on her threat. Alex was gone. I vividly remember running from room to room, sobbing, calling out his name, waiting for him to come running. But he was gone, and I hadn't gotten to say goodbye. My mom had found a family who was on the market for a new pet, and she'd given Alex away. My sister and I were in shock. We embraced each other tightly, both sobbing at the loss of our pet. And even while crying with her, I blamed her. I was just a kid. She was a teenager. She was supposed to be more mature than me, and she got too busy with her stupid social life and school and driving the family Suburban to do God knows what with guys to take care of Alex, and now Alex was gone. As it turned out, this would be the first of many times that my sister would disappoint me. And ever since that day, I have had a bad habit of keeping track of every single mess up. Flunking out of school, every horrible boyfriend, lost jobs, starting with Alex. Looking back, I understand that my mom did the right thing under the circumstances. Alex was not being cared for properly. I just didn't know how much I loved him until he was gone. Isn't that the way it goes? That's my version of the story. Cut to a few weeks ago at a Saltgrass Steakhouse in Arlington, right off the interstate. I'm having dinner with my sister and her new husband. We're having a good time, catching up, but I'm a little tense. Nothing in particular, there's always just a slight tension when I'm with my sister. Even though we're both adults now and happily married and living out our own separate lives, I still feel myself clench when I see her. It's that resentment, that keeping score that I've done my whole life. We talk about our food, my kids, our jobs, though I'm delicate when I mention work, always losing track of whether or not she has a job. I ask how their pets are doing. She has a dog that she's had for a few years now that she adores. His name is Boots. Then out of nowhere, she asks, melodramatic, "Do you remember Alex?" I smile and nod, annoyed by the question. Of course I remember Alex. And she proceeds to tell the story to her husband, who I guess hadn't heard it before. She tells how we got Alex, how cute he was, how I used to torment him. Then she says, "And I was home for the weekend when Mom gave him away." And I stop her and say, "Are you sure?" That's a question I ask my sister a lot, because she has a habit of changing the facts to make herself the victim. Nothing has ever been her fault. So instead of coming right out and saying, "You're wrong about that," I take a more family-friendly, passive-aggressive approach. Are you sure? It drives her nuts. "Yes, I'm sure," she says emphatically, already defensive. And I correct her. "I don't think so. You were still living at home, still in high school. We both came home from school that day." She clenches her teeth as I make a point not to clench mine. Refusing to give ground or power or something else that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I let it go and we finish our meal, but as I merge onto I-35, it starts to bug me the more I think about it. It's a minor detail perhaps, but if she was already out of the house like she said, already in college, then I was the one who was supposed to be taking care of Alex. It means that I wasn't as young as I thought. I was 13, making me more than capable of walking, feeding, and bathing a dog. It means that my negligence, not hers, was the reason Alex had to be shipped off to a better home, a better family, a better friend. There's no way that can be true, I think. I immediately called my mom to bitch about it, even though I know my mother is exhausted from years of being the family's mediator. Do you remember Alex, the dog? I asked. Yes. My mom says with an exasperated tone, I know, I'm the worst mother in the world. No, it's not that, I continue. It's Stephanie. She says she was in college when you gave him away. She was, my mom says. She was? I say. Are you sure? And now I have to change my memory to fit the facts. What I remember isn't what happened. Over time, I conveniently constructed the story of Alex to make me the victim. Not him, not my sister, me. Poor little me. And that just ain't the truth. I'm like my sister in a lot of ways. The flaws I continue to immaturely and unfairly inventory in her are becoming more apparent to be mine as well. But I'll tell you one thing. She loves her dog. And she cares for her animals the way they should be cared for. The way I did not care for Alex. I really don't think I ever hit him. But lately a voice has been echoing in my mind like a whisper. You sure?
Wake up. Wake up! There's a turkey in the backyard, I said to my comatose boyfriend on the Sunday morning, trying to wake him up. I had wandered over to the back door without my contact lenses in and saw, in the blurred grass, a massive, feathery bird-like thing, like a kickball with feathers fanned out of it, parading around the yard. Obviously a turkey. Our rapidly gentrifying South Dallas neighborhood had its share of wildlife. Stray dogs, stray cats, owls, snakes, crackheads, but no known population of wild turkeys. The boyfriend shot me a look. He threw on a robe, I threw on glasses. We went outside. Shh, he said. That's a rooster. Oh, I said, not a turkey. It jumped. We jumped and stood there. The chicken glared at us like strangers in his yard. Turkey is its name now, I said, walking towards the shark-beaked thing with green umbrella-like tails shoved back down, scampering back towards the bushes, where his red eyes fixed us in his sights. We couldn't get far. My boyfriend ran at the bushes. Turkey ran towards me. I looked down. He had a white shoelace around his ankle. Huh. Turkey's a fugitive. He's a runaway chicken, I said, realizing he had been raised to be a cockfighter, a fate he was perhaps trying to escape. I looked at him, so proud and beautiful, even with his shoelace, and knew right away I wanted to keep him. Give him a good home, make him my pet. Huh. Pets. I had always wanted a dog. As a kid, every day I came home from school, I would pull the newspaper classifieds, go to the puppy section, circle ads, and thrust them at my mom. Several days in a row, I couldn't find the classifieds. My mom said, oh, I guess the newspaper stopped making classifieds. But then, because they aren't evil, my parents got me a dog. We're getting you a dog. Turned out to be a mutant poodle. Who was free to a good home. Casey the mutant poodle had back legs twice as long as his fronts, splayed out teeth, matted fur, and the fleas of neglect. He arrived completely shaved and chemical dipped. He was the ugliest poodle. It smelled like pine sol. But I was in love. The next day, my parents took him back. They were sick from the chemicals. Thus began my first existential crisis. I was a storm cloud, storming in my room for months, thinking about how I could overthrow my parents' dictatorship and get myself a dog. And then Casey, the one-day pet, was replaced by Lucky, the cockatiel, an angry yellow bird who never liked me. I would nose up to his cage and say, pretty bird, while he ignored me. So I grew up, basically a petless suburban sap who wanted an animal to love, but never had the chance. We have to keep him, I said to my boyfriend, looking at Turkey, with that shoelace dragging behind him. He couldn't go back where he came from. Cockfighting has been the stuff of great literature, old songs, episodes of Seinfeld, and the Spike TV show 1,000 Ways to Die. In many parts of the world, cockfighting is still practiced as a mainstream event. But where we lived, cockfighting was illegal. Even keeping a rooster in your backyard was illegal in our neighborhood. A code violation because of that cock-a-doodle-doing thing they do. My heart went out to Turkey. Turkey was a lover, adventurer, not a fighter. No one, birds included, asks to be born. Turkey, the chicken, was just born the wrong kind of bird in the wrong part of town. Our neighbor, an architect, always very GQ, came to the fence with a pitcher of mimosas. He saw what we were singing and said, nice cock. I'm running an errand. No, on the run. He nodded, knowingly. A sign on the wall said, backyard bird feeding is the most relaxing, fulfilling, educational, and exciting hobby that anyone, young or old, can enjoy. The chicken is going to eat bugs around your yard, he said, looking me over. You have a yard, right? I nodded. He continued, aiding and abetting our keeping of the criminal. Put out some water and sprinkle a handful of this, he said, handing me a jug of cracked corn. Turkey took to his new luxurious life with us, his chicken spa vacation. He pecked at bugs, he gorged on cracked corn,